Welcome back to this video on professional kitchen knife sharpening tips. But before we begin, I'll show you the terrible condition this kitchen knife is currently in. Although I tried to cut this thin sheet of paper, every attempt only ended up tearing it. I even had to use the force of my wrist just to rip the paper. Even when I lightly ran the blade across my hand, it barely produced any sensation. If you're experiencing the same problem, there's no need to worry. Now let's get started and fix this problem together. As the first step, I prepared a rectangular wooden board measuring 16.5 by 8.5 centimeters to serve as the base of the tool, helping secure the other important components on top. Next, I prepared an L-shaped angle bracket and positioned it properly on the surface of the wooden board. Then, I used screws to fasten it securely in place, creating a sturdy support frame for the components that will be installed in the following steps. Next, I will mark two positions on the surface of the wooden board to install a blade holder, helping keep the knife securely in place and making the sharpening process much easier. At this point, I will use screws to secure the two metal washers to the pre-drilled holes on the surface of the wooden board. These washers will hold the knife blade firmly in place, keeping it securely fixed throughout the sharpening process. Here, I prepared an additional rectangular wooden block measuring 9.5 by 3.5 centimeters to replace the sharpening stone. I will drill a hole in this wooden block, then secure a shaft into it to serve as the push and pull component during the knife sharpening process. And I'll make use of this welding rod as the shaft. It has a suitable length, so it won't cause any issues during the push and pull motion while sharpening the knife. To firmly secure the welding rod to this rectangular wooden block, I will use liquid glue to join these two parts together. Of course, the wooden surface itself cannot be used to sharpen a knife, so I will cover both sides of this wooden block with two different types of sandpaper, ranging from coarse sharpening to fine sharpening. And the first type of sandpaper I use is 400 grit sandpaper. This type of sandpaper has a suitable roughness level for the initial coarse sharpening stage, helping to work on the blade surface before moving on to finer sharpening steps. The second type of sandpaper I use is 800 grit sandpaper. This sandpaper has a finer surface, which is used to continue refining the blade after the coarse sharpening stage, helping improve the sharpness before moving on to the final testing step. The main sharpening component has now been completed. Now, I will begin assembling the remaining parts and connecting all components together to complete this homemade knife sharpening system. Don't forget to spray a little water onto the sandpaper surface before starting to sharpen the knife, as this will help the sharpening process go more smoothly. One side of the knife blade has been sharpened very well. Now I'll flip it over and continue sharpening the other side. The knife sharpening process is now complete. However, a considerable amount of metal filing still remains on the surface of the blade, making it look dirty and posing a safety risk if they accidentally contaminate food. Therefore, thoroughly cleaning the blade before using it is absolutely essential. Alright, we've finally reached the most anticipated part of this video, the final test. I'll get started right away. This cut is incredibly effortless. I barely had to use any hand force. With just a gentle motion, the blade glided through smoothly. This is the clearest proof of everything I've done from the beginning of the video until now. At the start, this knife was in very poor condition. It had almost completely lost its sharpness, making every cutting attempt difficult and ineffective. That's why I built a homemade sharpening tool and carefully followed each step, starting with 400 grit sandpaper for coarse sharpening, then 800 grit sandpaper for fine sharpening, and finally cleaning away all the metal filings left on the blade before putting it to the test. The final result shows that by following the correct process and being patient, even a dull kitchen knife can regain an impressive level of sharpness. I hope this video gives you a useful method for restoring dull kitchen knives at home. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.